This video is a little longer than I like to have, and a lot of it has been sped up. So you'll be able to stop it, pause it, back it up if you need to. You certainly don't need to follow this entire video, but try to watch at least the first half and go through some of the textures and process. I'm starting here, like always, the lightest colors and the furthest area away from me on these mountains. And it's kind of a grayed green, so I'm going in with that darker green that's in your set. I'm going to add some gray to it, and I put some little patches of pink and little of the peach back in there where some of the rock is showing through in the distance. And you'll notice you're still seeing some paper back behind this, and that's fine. I'm going to go in here and add some darker. This is a little of the dark blue. Add it in with your green. You get a darker hue. And then I'm going to use some gray. Be careful with that dark blue. It's easy to overpower your green. Now I've got a big pine tree right up here at the left of this picture, and it's close. It's a lot closer than anything else is, and it's dark. It's a very dark color, so I'm going to start with the dark blue just to pull the green down some. And I'm using the scumbling technique that we used when we were doing the pen drawings. It's that sloppy kind of scribbly line. And just laying in the basic shape of this tree where some of the boughs come out. There's some brighter, shorter evergreens and bushes that are right along the bank, and a few places that are kind of a grayish color. And so I'm kind of laying in those areas. Always start with your lightest and then work darker. Now I'm going back to this big tree, and I'm adding some of that green, the darker green that's in your set. Staying with the scumbling, still not filling everything in, because it's going to take several layers of colors for us to get as dark as we need to. Adding a little of that blue into that bush there. And there's another pine tree right there. Putting it in with the dark blue. Now this one that I started with the yellow, it's a lighter tree, so I'm not putting the dark blue in it just yet. Now, I've got the purple. Purple is a great way to sort of build some shadows, and I'm just looking at my picture and finding some of the darker areas on this tree. And then I'm going back with the darker green again. And now I'm using stippling. Remember the dot to dot that we used when we were doing the pen and ink drawings? That's the amber yellow that you're seeing in my hand right now, and it's stippling. I'm dotting. I'm just dotting dots on it. It's creating texture. And I'm doing it in all of these different trees and bushes and stuff that are there. Anything that has that little pebbly look. Now the edge of my paper, I've got this little white area, so I've got to kind of go back in with some dark blue. I'm using that violet blue and some green. And again, the stippling, dot to dot, just creating the texture on that tree that's so close to us. Now black is my last resort. when I'm like, I've tried several things, I can't get it as dark as I want to, I need it a little darker, I am going to use some black. And that's okay. Just don't let it overwhelm and don't let it end up being an outline like a cartoon. You see, I just used the bright yellow, popping a little more black in here and there, pull in some darker areas. And more stippling with the green. So if you watch about 5 minutes of this and then just stop it and try and do, a tree or something that's from your landscape on yours using these techniques. And if you have a different kind of tree, if you're doing an aspen tree or birch tree or a big cottonwood where you've got a big woody trunk, just raise your hand. I'll come and show you some techniques that you can use for your tree that will help you with that. This landscape happened to just have a whole lot of evergreens and a lot of foliage and bushes and grass and stuff. I even use the peach. That's the peach right there to bring up lighter areas. As I move across this, I'm going to use the same kinds of techniques. I'm going to pay attention though, like that little area there is kind of a little grassy thing that's sticking out. So I'm using grass-like strokes instead of dots. But right behind it, that's a bush, and it's just a whole bunch of leaves. So there I'm using the dots to try and get that dotty texture again. I don't worry about defining out each tree perfectly. When we look at a landscape, we rarely look to see if each tree is perfectly formed. So there's a big, tall evergreen, sticks up. It's a little bit sparse. It's not as full as the one here on the left. And so I just have gone through and used that dark blue violet to lay in. And then I'm adding some of the green, the darker green from the set on your desk. Working over the top. And some purple. Purple is a good shade to mix with green. Helps to bring down the tones a lot. That's that green again. Now you could use the lime green, but I find that a lot of times when I'm trying for that lime greeny color, if I go straight to the lime green, I lose the texture because it just all blends together. Whereas if I use the yellow and then have it mixed with some of the darker green, I get the lime I'm looking for, but I keep some texture to it so it doesn't look flat and smooth. Now I decided to try a little brown here. Sometimes trees, they're a little on the brown side, their green is. So that one I mixed with a little brown instead of the blue. And now we got to look at this water's edge. It is late. There's a shadow cast right at the edge of the bank. And so I am using that black. And I go right in and kind of fit that in where it belongs. But then I'm grabbing that dark blue and I'm putting it over the top. So it doesn't... Black tends to be really flat. And it'll look like this weird, just solid black line. And so I went through and I just added kind of a layer there of the dark blue on top of it. And I'm cleaning out that edge of the bank. And then I'm going to add a little shine a little bit of a white edge where that water is coming up to the bank. Side to side, always in the water. Some more bushes in the distance. And then adding some purpley blue. It's that dark blue violet again to darken in an area there. It needs to be darker. Now, if you've got it nice and thick, you just saw me use my fingernail. I got a little dip of the green where I didn't want it down below, and I could use my fingernail to sort of scrape it out. And then I'm going back in, using my black, my dark blue, my white, and laying in my bank of my river again. Always clean your lightest colors off, especially. They will drag color. Now I've got a little stand of trees really close together, a bunch of them. So I just went through and kind of laid their spine in and then worked over the top of those lines to create that little stand of trees. And I worked with the dark blue, and then I'm back in with the green. And I just work my layers back and forth using that sort of scumbly and stippling motions depending on what I needed. You don't need to watch this whole thing. So if you want to stop it right here and work on yours, by all means do that. But if you want to see the rest, just continue to watch. It's only 13 minutes long, and you can stop it anywhere you want to. There are trees on this right hill, but they're back behind some closer bushes, and this is kind of it's a bush, but it's got a whole lot of kind of darker tree branches in it, and then a bunch of leaves out on the end. So I'm actually using the green, and I'm going to use some purple. That's the purple mixing in with the green, and it gives that kind of inky looking weird color. And then stippling to create all of those. Now here I started with the purple, add a little touch of yellow over here where I have a lighter area, working yellow up into my leaves. And now you can see when you put the green over the top, you get this dark area that's not really black, but it's kind of charcoaly looking. It's a great way to build colors, build darkness without having to use black. And then our right side of the riverbank, it's a little bit lighter. It's not quite as dark, so I am using the blue violet instead of the black on this right side.